Hi, and welcome to our special look at the coronation of King Charles III. It's been more than 7 decades since the last coronation of a British monarch. So for most of us, this will be a ceremony unlike anything we've ever seen before. For the next 30 minutes, we're going to bring you behind the scenes of this historic day. We'll show you what to expect, the major figures to watch, and the challenges facing the new king. But we begin with what promises to be one of the grandest days in British history. It's a day the oldest are proud to have lived to see, and the youngest will remember all their lives. That's how Winston Churchill described the coronation of Queen Elizabeth. And 70 years later, young and old are once again eager to see history unfold when Charles is crowned king.
The coronation is really steeped in history. It has its origins in the coronation ceremony of King Edgar, which is in 973. So over 1,000 years of history.
In recent years, we've seen royal weddings, state funerals, and even the accession of King Charles. But a coronation is a religious ceremony based on a belief in the divine rights of kings and queens.
The medieval period is people saw this as a moment that was a godly moment. It was an act of God.
For the last 900 years, the ceremony has taken place in Westminster Abbey, a tradition that started with William the Conqueror.
It was really an act of political symbolism that he was crowned in the same place that Edward the Confessor was laid to rest. And it was in this period that it's said that when Edward the Confessor died, he handed the monks of Westminster Abbey all of his regalia.
The crown jewels, normally locked away in the Tower of London, will be on full display.
There are various parts of the coronation regalia which are also incredibly old. The coronation spoon dates from the 13th century, and other aspects of the crown jewels date from 1661. So it's incredibly old, and that gives it this real weight of the past. It's really embedded in English history and British history. I mean, when you think about Henry VIII, even for him, it was 500 years old, some of these ceremonies. So it's quite incredible.
Once crowned, the king will travel back to the palace in the Gold State Coach, originally commissioned for King George III in the 1700s.
The Queen's procession roused the cheers of all the thousands packed in the shadow of the Abbey.
For centuries, only a fraction of the public was able to see the ceremony firsthand. That all changed with Queen Elizabeth II. Her coronation was the first to be televised. Even then, American audiences had to wait until the film was flown overseas before they could watch.
Where we're going to be awaiting the first of our bridge of planes, which will bring film to the United States.
Now, for the first time in history, a global audience will be able to see the crowning of the British monarch live. That's not the only modern touch. The 2,000 invitations are printed on recycled paper. There is a palace-approved emoji to mark the occasion, and we'll hear a new coronation anthem composed by Andrew Lloyd Webber.
I've written the moment as it stands. It's the moment after both of them have been crowned. I think one of the things that the king was very, very keen to try and make is the occasion joyful. So I've chosen Psalm 98, which has the line in it several times, make a joyful noise. And so the anthem is called Make a Joyful Noise.
But with a new age comes new questions about the future of the monarchy and its place in modern society.
Charles has a very different challenge facing him. He's got to sort of prove that the monarchy is legitimate. He is legitimate.
We have to feel a connection with the royal family. And the way that you can clearly see that connection is being portrayed and put forward is that they aren't dissimilar to us. They are similar to us.
Even as the monarchy faces new scrutiny, the coronation will give King Charles a chance to win over skeptics.
I think the coronation can bring the country together. I think it's a continuation of the pageantry of the Queen's funeral, which was something that absolutely brought the country together.
Charles is, of course, no stranger to pomp and pageantry. Take a look. This is Queen Elizabeth crowning her son in 1969 when he was formally presented to the people of Wales as their prince, known as the investiture ceremony.
I, Charles, Prince of Wales, do become your liege man of life and limb.
500 million people around the world tuned in to see this moment. It was just one of the steps on Charles's long journey to becoming king. Here's NBC's Kelly Kobiella.
It's the role he's prepared a lifetime for. Queen Elizabeth's eldest son is now on the throne. From the age of 4, when his mother was crowned Queen Elizabeth II, Charles Mountbatten Windsor was groomed to be King Charles III. Instead, he became the oldest and longest-serving heir to the throne in British history. Decade after decade, waiting in the shadow of his mother. He'd been shy, a lonely boy, an average student, no sportsman. His schooling in Scotland he called pure hell. In his younger days, Charles lived the life of a playboy, hunting, playing polo, serving as a pilot in the Air Force, and commanding a ship in the Royal Navy. By 30, Charles was considered one of the world's most eligible bachelors, but under intense pressure to marry.
Early 30s, handsome, rich, and the heir to the British throne, London was full of rumors this week that he may now be about to take a bride.
He started dating a shy kindergarten teacher, Lady Diana Spencer, who captivated the world. It's believed their wedding was watched by hundreds of millions of people around the globe. The public's obsession with Princess Diana was unmatched, her popularity often overshadowing Charles.
She didn't take the limelight because she wanted to outdo her husband. It was just that she was so particularly good at what she did and so popular that her popularity was effectively her downfall.
The couple had 2 sons in 3 years, but behind the facade of a picture-perfect family, trouble was brewing, and not always behind closed doors. Rumors of incompatibility and infidelity from both sides soon plaguing the couple, leading to an eventual split.
A surprising call from Queen Elizabeth. She's telling Princess Diana and Prince Charles to end their public squabbling and get a divorce.
Before Charles's divorce, over 80% of Brits thought he'd make a good king. That number dropped by half after the couple split. And when Diana died tragically in a car accident, Britain saw a huge outpouring of grief and a public turning against the royals.
Well, Charles has faced a bit of a tough time, I think, in his public reception, and particularly when he was Prince of Wales, he was very unpopular at certain points, especially around the events regarding Princess Diana.
Charles turned the chapter on this tumultuous period in his life, spending more time with his sons and going public with his relationship with Camilla Parker Bowles. The two first met and dated in the 1970s. At the time, Camilla was a popular socialite. 30 years later, after scandals, tell-alls, and public backlash, Charles and Camilla married in 2005.
Before they married, she was portrayed as a wicked witch, as an adulteress, as a terrible person. And slowly, over the years, she has been rehabilitated. She has managed to turn the public from really disliking her intensely to accepting her.
In recent years, we've seen Charles using his position to draw attention to an issue close to his heart, climate change.
We cannot ignore the symptoms and should act now to restore the health of the planet.
Charles's advocacy and service and support for his mother, stepping in as she reduced her duties, led many to reevaluate him.
In many ways, Charles is a better fit for a modern Britain than he was 30 or 40 years ago. In some ways, public opinion has moved behind Charles.
An heir in waiting, patiently preparing for his future role. When that moment finally arrived, the new king led his nation in mourning their beloved monarch.
Queen Elizabeth was a life well lived, a promise with destiny kept, and she is mourned most deeply in her passing. That promise of lifelong service I renew to all today.
On Coronation Day, Charles is expected to appear on the balcony of Buckingham Palace, surrounded by his family. Keir Simmons is with me now to talk about the future monarchs who will be right there alongside the king. Hi, Keir. Good to see you.
Hey there. I can't wait to be with you there in London. It's going to be so much fun, right?
It is.
Savannah, on Coronation Day, we are likely to see King Charles with 2 future kings. Charles' son, Prince William, is expected to ascend to the throne after his father. And 9-year-old Prince George is also likely to one day be king. Next in line of succession is Princess Charlotte, followed by Prince Louis, William's youngest. Like Charles, his grandchildren have been in the public eye since they were born. Prince William and Kate Middleton were delighted to welcome their first bundle of joy, heir to the throne, George Alexander Louis, in 2013.
He's got a good pair of lungs on him, that's for sure. He's a big boy, he's quite heavy.
A little over a year later, Prince George was already embarking on his first royal tour, a visit to New Zealand and Australia. Cameras followed his every move. Playtime with fellow toddlers. And a trip to Australia's Tarrengar Zoo, where he took delight in some things, not in others. And just a few years later, he was off on his first day of school. The next addition to the family, a baby girl, arrived in 2015. At Princess Charlotte's christening later that year, Big Brother George was right by her side. The brother and sister have stayed side by side through a number of royal journeys.
I think the fact that William and Kate have involved the children in some engagements and in these tours really says a lot about how they operate as a family. They want to stay together. William and Kate are very strong as a unit. They want to spend the time with the children.
The family became a party of five with the birth of another little prince in 2018.
A very official grown-up name, Louis Arthur Charles.
In the years since, the family has offered a glimpse into their lives, celebrating milestones and more. Prince Louis has shown us his cheeky personality, most notably alongside his great-grandmother, the late Queen Elizabeth, at the Platinum Jubilee celebrations. The young prince's headline-making reactions from the balcony of Buckingham Palace delighted royal watchers. Meanwhile, Princess Charlotte appears to be swiftly growing into her royal duties, perfecting the royal wave and schooling her brother on proper etiquette. And Prince George continues to rise to the occasion, joining his parents front and centre at sporting events and family festivities alike. He's looked very grown up, shaking hands after the royals' Easter service in Windsor recently, his brother and sister following along. These young royals have grown up before our very eyes.